In the lively village of Umuaro, the market was always bustling with people. Brightly colored fabrics, fresh fruits, and all sorts of goods lined the stalls. But no stall was more popular than Mama Ada's. Every day, villagers crowded around her stand to buy her delicious meat pies. They were warm, flaky, and filled with tender, juicy meat. Everyone said they were the best in the entire village, maybe even the whole region. But no one knew the dark secret behind them. Mama Ada was an old woman with a kind smile and a warm laugh. She seemed to know everyone and always had something nice to say. People trusted her, but there was something about her that only few noticed. Children often felt uneasy around her. When she passed by, they would suddenly grow quiet and cling to their mothers. Orphans, in particular, avoided her stall. They didn't know why, but something inside them warned them to stay away. Obi was such an orphan. He lived with his little sister Nneka in a small hut at the edge of the village. Their parents had died when they were very young, leaving the two siblings to fend for themselves. Despite the hardship, Obi and Nneka were happy as long as they had each other. One day, as Obi and Nneka walked through the market, Nneka suddenly stopped in front of Mama Ada's stall. The smell of the meat pies was strong and mouth-watering. Nneka's stomach growled loudly. "Can we have one, Obi?" Nneka asked, her big eyes filled with longing. Obi looked at Mama Ada, who was smiling down at Nneka. Something about her smile sent a shiver down his spine. "We can't afford it, Nneka," Obi said softly, pulling his sister away. Mama Ada watched them leave, her smile never fading. "Come back soon," she called after them. "I have a special treat just for you." That night, as they lay on their mats, Nneka couldn't stop talking about the meat pies. "Obi, they smelled so good," she whispered. "I wish we could have one." Obi frowned in the dark. "We'll have one someday, Nneka, but now we need to save our money for food that will last us the whole week." Nneka sighed, but didn't argue. She trusted her brother. The next morning, Obi went out to gather firewood. He told Nneka to stay close to hut and wait for him to return. But as soon as he was gone, Nneka felt a strange pull. She couldn't stop thinking about the meat pies. Her feet seemed to move on their own, leading her back to the market, back to Mama Ada's stall. When she arrived, Mama Ada was already waiting. "I knew you'd come back," she said with a grin. "Come, my dear, I have something special just for you." Nneka hesitated for a moment, but the smell of the pies was too tempting. She followed Mama Ada into a small room behind her stall. Inside, it was dark and smelled strange, like old, damp earth. But Nneka didn't notice. All she could see was the steaming meat pies that Mama Ada handed her. "Go on, take a bite," Mama Ada urged, her eyes gleaming. Nneka took a pie and brought it to her mouth. But just as she was about to take a bite, something sharp pricked her fingers. She yelped and dropped the pie. A small drop of blood fell onto the ground. Mama Ada's smile grew wider. "Perfect," she murmured. Suddenly, Nneka felt dizzy. The room started to spin and everything went dark. When Obi returned home and found Nneka missing, he panicked. He searched the village, asking everyone if they had seen her, but no one had. Desperate, he ran to the market, hoping against hope that she would be there. As he approached Mama Ada's stall, his heart raced. He pushed through the crowd and saw Mama Ada standing there, smiling as usual. But Nneka was nowhere in sight. "Mama Ada, have you seen my sister?" Obi asked, his voice shaking. Mama Ada's smile didn't falter. "No, I haven't, dear." Maybe she's playing with other children. Obi's heart sank. He knew Nneka would never wander off like this. Something was wrong, very wrong. That night, Obi couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Mama Ada's smile, about the way she had looked at Nneka the day before. He remembered the stories he had heard as a child, the stories about witches who lived in the village and kidnapped children. But those were just tales to scare little kids, right? Mama Ada couldn't be a witch, could she? Determined to find out the truth, Obi decided to investigate. The next day, he returned to the market and hid near Mama Ada's stall. He watched as she served the villagers, her smile never fading. But as the day wore on, Obi noticed something strange. Every once in a while, Mama Ada would glance around as if making sure no one was watching her. Then she would slip away to the back room. Obi waited until the market was almost empty before he made his move. He sneaked around to the back of the stall and found the door to a small room slightly ajar. Holding his breath, he peeked inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. The room was filled with strange objects, bones, jars of dark liquids, and a large cauldron bubbling over a fire. And there, lying on a mat in the corner, was Nneka, unconscious. Obi's heart pounded in his chest. He knew he had to get Nneka out of there. But before he could move, he heard footsteps behind him. Well, what do we have here? Mama Ada's voice was cold and sharp. A nosy little boy who doesn't know when to mind his own business. Obi spun around, his eyes wide with fear. Mama Ada's kind smile was gone, replaced by a twisted, cruel grin. She raised her hand and Obi felt a force push him back into the room. The door slammed shut, trapping him inside. You shouldn't have come here, boy, Mama Ada hissed. Now you'll join your sister in my special recipe. Obi's mind raced. He couldn't let this happen. He had to save Nneka. He grabbed a wooden stick from the floor and swung it at Mama Ada. But she was quick. With a flick of her wrist, the stick flew out of his hand and he was thrown to the ground. You are no match for me, she sneered. I've been doing this for years and no one has ever stopped me. But Obi wasn't ready to give up. He looked around the room, searching for something, anything that could help him. His eyes fell on the cauldron bubbling over the fire. Without thinking, he grabbed the cauldron's heavy lid and threw it at Mama Ada with all his strength. The lid hit her square in the chest, and she stumbled back, surprised. In that moment, Obi rushed to Nneka's side. He shook her gently, trying to wake her up. Nneka, please wake up, he pleaded. Slowly, Nneka's eyes fluttered open. She looked at Obi, confused. Obi, what's happening? No time to explain, Obi said urgently. We have to get out of here. But before they could move, Mama Ada recovered. Her eyes blazed with anger. You little brat, I'll make sure you suffer for this. She raised her hands and the room began to shake. The walls creaked and the floor trembled beneath them. Obi knew they didn't have much time. Run, Nneka, he shouted, pulling her to her feet. They bolted for the door, but Mama Ada was right behind them. As they reached the exit, Obi grabbed a jar from the shelf and threw it at Mama Ada's feet. The jar shattered and a thick black smoke filled the room. Mama Ada screamed in rage, but the smoke blinded her. Obi and Nneka took the chance and dashed out of the stall, running as fast as they could through the empty market. They didn't stop until they were far away from the village, hidden deep in the forest. Only then they did collapse, gasping for breath. Are you okay, Nneka? Obi asked, holding her close. Nneka nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Obi. I shouldn't have gone to her. "It's not your fault," Obi said, hugging her tightly. "We are safe now. That's all that matters." But they weren't safe, not yet. Mama Ada wasn't done with them. For days, Obi and Nneka hid in the forest. Too scared to return to the village, they knew Mama Ada would be looking for them. And they couldn't risk being caught. But they couldn't stay in the forest forever. They needed help. One night, as they huddled together under the stars, Obi had an idea. "We need to tell the village elder," he said. He knew what to do. "But what if he doesn't believe us?" Nneka asked, her voice trembling. "We have to try," Obi replied. "It's our only hope." The next morning, they made their way back to the village, keeping to the shadows to avoid being seen. When they reached the elder's hut, Obi knocked on the door, his heart pounding. The village elder, an old man with wise eyes, opened the door and looked down at the two frightened children. "What's the matter, my children?" he asked kindly. Obi took a deep breath and told the elder everything. About Mama Ada, the missing children, and the dark magic she used. The elder listened carefully, his expression growing more serious with each word. When Obi finished, the elder nodded. "I believe you," he said. "I've heard rumors about Mama Ada for years, but no one ever had proof. Now we do." The elder gathered villagers and told them what had happened. At first they were shocked and didn't want to believe it. But when Obi showed them the hidden room behind Mama Ada's stall, the truth became undeniable. The villagers confronted Mama Ada, who tried to deny everything. But the evidence was clear. The villagers, filled with anger and fear, chased her out of village, never to be seen again. Obi and Nneka were finally safe. The villagers thanked them for their bravery, and the village returned to normal. But Obi and Nneka would never forget what they had been through. They learned that even the kindest looking people could hide dark secrets, and the true bravery comes from standing up against evil, no matter how powerful it may seem. The moral lesson of the story is true bravery is not just about facing danger, but about doing what is right, even when it's difficult. Evil can hide behind a smile, and it's important to trust your instincts and stand up for what is right, no matter how scary it may be. Kaya here, grateful for your time today. If you loved the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Take care and stay safe.